Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game preview. Everton taking on Wolverhampton Wanderers tomorrow afternoon at Goodison Park in the Premier League as Sean Dyche's Everton side look for their first win of the Premier League season. The Toffees come into this one off the back of two straight defeats, as the Wolves, of course, who are currently sitting 19th in the Premier League table, just one place above Everton, of course, because they have a better goal difference. They've only conceded 4, whereas Everton have conceded 5 goals this season. They have lost to Manchester United as well as Brighton, and they actually were pretty impressive against Manchester United on the opening game of the season. Some would say they were unlucky to lose that game. Some would say they were definitely unlucky to not get a penalty for what was a blatant penalty. They were beaten a little bit more convincingly by Brighton last weekend, but there will be a lot of teams that will lose convincingly to Brighton this season. I'm sure of that. Wolves, a team that many people believed going into this season would struggle. Many people believed would be in and around the relegation battle towards the end of the season, much like Everton. However, like I said, they have had a relatively, although they're on the back of 2 losses, their performances have been slightly better than what the results suggest. The Brighton game, they were poor in that game, to be fair, but the Manchester United game at Old Trafford, they certainly didn't embarrass themselves in this one. Gary O'Neill, of course, the Wolves manager, after losing his job at Bournemouth towards the back end of last season, he has taken over there after Julian Lopetegui left the football club by mutual consent just before the Premier League season started. And this one will be another difficult game for Everton and another difficult game for Sean Dyche. It feels strange saying this, and it feels almost wrong saying this, but this one very much has a must-win feel about it. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people on social media over the last few days or so, obviously with the fallout of the Aston Villa game and everything that's gone on this week in terms of a lack of transfer movement and deals falling through for the likes of Nonto and seemingly Che Adams, and obviously the MSP stuff on Wednesday night as well. I've seen a lot of people talking about, the word sort of crisis and the position that Everton are in, etc., etc. And obviously, Sean Dyche come out yesterday in his pre-game press conference and said that, how can we be in a crisis? We're only 2 games in to the Premier League season. And I'm seeing a lot of people use that sort of, that fact as a reason to not be upset or as a reason to not be worried. And listen, if you're an Evertonian and you're confident Everton will stay up this season and you've got absolutely no fear whatsoever, then I'm incredibly jealous of you. I simply don't feel that way, but I'm incredibly jealous that you do. But for me, I don't really see this as the 3rd game of the season tomorrow. I almost see this as the 79th game. And by that, what I mean is, it very much feels to me like the last 2 seasons, 3 if you include the start of this one, have almost just rolled into one. So it doesn't feel like this is a fresh start. It doesn't feel like we're into a new season. There's fresh challenges, new beginnings, and, we're only a couple of games in, so we don't need to worry. It very much feels like we are on the same trajectory, on the same journey, and in the same position as we have been for the last 2 seasons. The only difference being we've had a little bit of a break in between those seasons. And the reason I say that is because nothing has seemingly changed at the football club. We still have the same people in charge at the top of the football club making the same baffling decisions. We've still got the same players on the pitch who simply aren't performing, and we've still got the same manager there who ultimately is making mistakes week in, week out. And there's a lot of people that jump to Sean Dyche's defence, and that's fine and that's fair enough. And obviously he's got a lot of fans within the Everton fan base that back him. And I don't not back Sean Dyche, but I also refuse to buy into this "he's only had 2 games, what are you talking about" nonsense, because it's not true. It's not true. Sean Dyche has been at Everton Football Club since January, and yes, he kept Everton up, and yes, he deserves a lot of credit for that, and yes, he deserves to be given an opportunity to move forward because of that. But let's not forget, the manager made a fair few mistakes towards the back end of last season. It took him 10 games to take Michael Keane out of this team after we conceded 20 goals. And it was only when he took Michael Keane out of this team that we started to pick up results and then ultimately stayed in the Premier League. He's put Michael Keane back into the team now for no reason, absolutely no reason. Also, I think it's important to remember Frank Lampard kept Everton up the season before. And yet, 4 or 5 games into last season, there were murmurs that Frank wasn't good enough, and Frank was, obviously having his doubters. So I'm not by any sense of the imagination, by the way, saying that Sean Dyche should be sacked or he isn't the right man for the job. I'm just saying that don't buy into this. You can't criticise the manager because we're only early on in the season. Because the fact of the matter is, if we lose this game tomorrow, then that'll be 3 defeats on the bounce, 2 of which will be against teams that we should be beating at Goodison Park. We should have beaten Fulham on the opening day of the season. Fulham aren't a very good team. They had a good season last season. They will struggle this season, as their first 2 fixtures have shown. We had 19 shots at goal and we didn't win the game. Now, okay, if we're in Manchester City or Newcastle or Man United, then you'd look at that and go, oh, that was unlucky that we had 19 shots at goal, and we were unlucky to lose that game. But if we play like that next week, we'll win. If we play like that the week after, we'll win. We know full well that Everton aren't going to have 19 shots at goal in every Premier League game this season. In fact, there will be very few Premier League games where Everton have more than 10 shots at goal. I would be willing to bet a lot of money on that. So given that as a fact, we can't look at Fulham and go, but we had 19 shots at goal, so we played well and it was just unlucky. For me, I can't do that. I look at Fulham and go, that's a winnable home game that Everton have lost. Tomorrow will be the exact same. I won't be sitting here on the instant match reaction if Everton have 112 shots on goal tomorrow but lose 1-0 saying, yeah, but, we had 110 shots on goal, and we were great and we battered them and this, that and the other. I'll be sitting here going, we've lost again. And that's 3 defeats on the bounce. One thing I said going into this season, it must be a necessity, is our home form simply has to improve. Results like last week against Aston Villa will happen. Everton are terrible away from home. We always have been terrible away from home, barring one season under Carlo Ancelotti, which I'm still, half convinced that it was a bit of a sort of did it really happen season given the circumstances. Barring that one season, in my lifetime, I can think of maybe 2 other seasons in where Everton have been alright away from home. Under Moyes, we were alright. We'd win some games, but we'd still lose most of the games that that you would look at and think this will be a tough one. We'd lose most of them games. So other than that Ancelotti season, we've never really been particularly great away from home, and we have been absolutely horrid away from home the last 2 seasons. 2 wins away last season, 2 wins away the season before. So on the basis that we probably are once again going to be absolutely horrid away from home this season. And if you want an example of why I think like that, look back at last week, a 4-0 defeat to, a good Aston Villa team, but nevertheless, we turned up and we got absolutely steamrolled once again. If that is going to happen, then Everton simply cannot afford to be losing games at Goodison Park against teams that we should be beating. And I'm not talking about Manchester City, I'm not talking about the derby, I'm not talking about Liverpool. There's already, 4 or 5 home games that you would probably chalk off as games Everton are not likely to win. Now, we might win all 5 of them because we've beat City at home before when they've been at their pomp. We've beat, Arsenal at Goodison before. We've got quite a good record against Arsenal at Goodison. Same with Chelsea at Goodison, United at Goodison. So we may win those games, okay. But we may also lose those games. And if we do lose those games, the likelihood is we'll all be sitting here going, well, they're just a much better team than we are, so it is what it is. And that has been the case more recently. We've had a great record, we've had a good record against certain teams in the past, but more recently, like the City and stuff. When was the last time we beat City at Goodison Park? Was it that 4-1 win in 2016, 2017? I think it may have been. So we've already got 4 or 5 games at Goodison that whilst we could win, the expectation would be that we probably are going to lose those games. So that further emphasises the need to win the easy games at Goodison. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying easy games, because tomorrow will not be an easy game whatsoever. Wolves, as I said, for me, were really impressive in their opening game of the season. Not so much last week, but again, they've got a decent defensive unit. Wolves' problem is they don't score goals. So if they nick one tomorrow, there's every chance that they go and win that game 1-0. Their problem is very similar to our problem. They don't score goals, we don't score goals, so this could be a 0-0 or 90 minutes of absolute nonsense tomorrow. It very well could be. But defensively, well, they are better than what we are at the moment for the simple fact that we're starting a player that shouldn't be anywhere near the starting 11. So this still is a game, though, that I expect Everton to turn up and win tomorrow. And the reason I say that is because if Everton can't beat this Wolves team at Goodison Park, if Everton can't beat that Fulham team at Goodison Park, same as last season, if Everton couldn't have beat Southampton at Goodison, if Everton couldn't have beat Nottingham Forest at Goodison, who else didn't we beat at Goodison towards the back end of the season? A number of games that we lost at Goodison that we just should not have been losing. Then you have to expect us to be in a position come April and May where we don't know whether or not we're going to be playing Premier League football the season following. My goal for this season and my hope for this season, as we said in the season preview, was for Everton to get to those latter stages of the season and there be absolutely no doubt about our future as a Premier League football club. But I also said the only way we're going to achieve that is by having a much better home record than the one that we've had in the last couple of years or so. I'm not asked about away games because I've pretty much, sort of accepted that Everton are terrible away from home. Everton aren't going to turn up and beat 7 or 8 teams away from home this season. It ain't going to happen. We might get 1 or 2 wins like we have the previous seasons, but it ain't going to happen. However, I don't think it's too much for me to expect Everton to turn up at Goodison and beat the teams that are in and around us. And that will be in and around us come the end of the season. And ultimately, Wolves are one of those teams. And whether you love him or you hate him, whether you like him or not, whether you think he should be given a lot of time, whether you think he should be kept on as manager, whether you think that he's getting unfair criticism at the moment, the reality is the reality. And that reality is if Everton lose tomorrow, Sean Dyche will come under an awful lot of pressure. Because A, he's a Premier League manager who's lost 3 on the bounce, and it comes with the territory. But also B, it would be another winnable game at home that Everton had lost, and we've only had 2 of them this season, and we'd have lost both. So tomorrow is huge, and it's huge on a number of fronts. It really, really is. Because if we look at this positively, and I don't want to think too negatively and look at things too negatively, but it is difficult at the moment. It is difficult. I sat here last week and said if Everton haven't signed a striker by Friday 12 p.m, I'll be absolutely fuming. It's got to Friday 12 p.m, and of course we haven't signed a striker, so it is difficult to be positive. It is difficult to look on the bright side, but there is positives. If Everton win tomorrow, which is very possible, and then we go and win on Wednesday against Doncaster, again, something that should be expected, regardless of how poor we've been, regardless of how poor the squad is, or how little we've invested so far. The expectation is that we can go and beat Doncaster on Wednesday. So if we win tomorrow, and then we go and win on Wednesday, then all of a sudden, we're going into that last week of the transfer window. We might get a couple of signings in, but then we're going into that game the following weekend against Sheffield United, thinking, do you know what? We've won 2 on the bounce here. We've brought a couple of names in that are exciting. Let's go and win this game, or go and get a point away, and we can go into the international break off the back of 2 wins and a draw, or 3 wins, and then we're coming back out the international break. Dom will probably be ready. Dwight McNeil will be nearly there. Jack Harrison will be nearly there. All of a sudden, the narrative changes, and things are looking a lot brighter, and things are looking a lot more positive. And that is what happens in football. That's what happens in football. I watch a Leeds United fan channel just because I like watching other fan channels, engaging other people's opinions. And last week he put up a video of him saying that it was the worst week he's ever experienced as a Leeds fan. And today he's put up a video talking about how positive things are moving forward because of a couple of signings they're making or a couple of things that they've done. And that's how quickly things can change in football. You can go from one week everything being the worst it's ever been to the next week everything being absolutely brilliant. It's important that Everton turn that narrative around. And you do that by winning games of football. And you do that by strengthening in the areas that you need to strengthen in. Having said that, the manager has his responsibility tomorrow. As I've titled this live stream, Sean Dyche must get this right. And he must get this right. Because as much as we might want to talk about Kevin Thelwell and, him not being, not doing, bringing in the players that we need, and that not being Sean Dyche's fault, as much as we talk about Farhad Mashiri and Bill Kenwright and them not being Sean Dyche's fault, the reality is Sean Dyche picks the team. And I said this, I think, last week. I don't know whether I said it on camera, but I'll say it again. There is a very, very good chance that before the ball is even being kicked tomorrow afternoon, Sean Dyche has lost the majority of Evertonians. And by that, what I mean is, the manager has got a decision to make here. Does he want that stadium tomorrow to be filled with 40,000 Blues singing, screaming, shouting, getting behind the players, roaring and dragging the players through that game for the first win of the season? Or does he want that game tomorrow to be filled with a flat atmosphere of anxiety, of upset, of frustration, of anger? And he is in control of that, by the way, he is. Because I can tell you now, if that team news comes out tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock and Jared Branthwaite's on it and Dan Juma's on it and maybe Lewis Dobbin's on it, then that atmosphere at Goodison is much, 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 much happier and better than it is if Michael Keane's on it and Mope's up front and James Garner's at right wing and, you know, whoever else is in there that you know, play that fans simply don't want to see. And I'm not saying Sean Dyche should pick the team based on what the fans want, because, you know, evidently he's a Premier League manager. He knows, you know, the team he should pick. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying take Michael Keane out because we all hate him. I haven't got no ill feeling towards Michael Keane whatsoever. Don't know him personally, never met him, probably never will meet him. I'm saying Michael Keane needs to come out because he's not good enough. And I don't really mind if it's Ben Godfrey or it's Jared Branthwaite. For whatever reason, the excuse the manager gave yesterday in his press conference was Branthwaite isn't fit. That's bollocks. That's absolute bollocks, because Branthwaite came back at the same time as James Garner, and James Garner's fit. So that's absolute bollocks. But it's about changing that perception, and it's not like we're just saying, we'll take him out because we hate him and we don't want to see him play. No, the reason is because they're not good enough to play for Everton, and these players, the likes of Michael Keane, have shown that year in, year out since they've been at this football club. And I can guarantee you the mood of Evertonians will be infinitely better tomorrow if Branthwaite is in there, or if Godfrey's in there instead, or there's maybe a Dan Juma or a Dobbin up top, because obviously a Wobie's injured, and of course we know the left hand side we're struggling with at the moment as well. Dom obviously is out, so there's an opportunity here for the manager to change things around even slightly before the ball is even being kicked, and change the mood around slightly before the ball is even being kicked as well. Then obviously it's the work on the pitch, and as I said before, Wolves are a team that, you know, people have got down as struggling this season because of their financial problems and because they ultimately can't score goals, but they play decent football, and they were unlucky to not get something out of that opening game of the season, as with Everton. So it won't be an easy game at all, but it's definitely one Everton can win. And the way I look at this is, if this was our 38th game of the season and we needed to win this one to stay in the Premier League, Everton would win this one tomorrow comfortably, I think. Comfortably. So there's no reason why we can't go out and win it anyway. For me, I think the Yusuf Chermiti conversation is an important one to have. I've spoken my mind on Yusuf Chermiti a number of times in the last week or so. I think it's shocking, the whole situation. I don't see the point in spending £30 million on a player who is a slow burner and who isn't ready to play. The reality of the situation is we need a striker. And he's 6'4", he's got the right build, he's very similar to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I'm not saying he's Premier League ready. I'm not saying he's Premier League fit. However, what I'm saying is, surely he's available to be on the bench. And listen, I think the training videos have come out today and he hasn't been featured in any of them, and we haven't seen him, so, you know, ultimately whether or not he is available on the bench, if I was a betting man, I would bet he wouldn't be, but you don't know, we'll wait and see. But again, something that will lift the mood of fans when that team news comes out. Oh, Chermiti's on the bench, or we might get 20 minutes, he might get half an hour at the end of the game. Again, even if you've got no plan to play him whatsoever, you can still have him on the bench, and that will still lift the mood because he's there and because it's exciting that he's there. Even if you've got no plan to bring him on, it's exciting because he's there. And fans are thinking, oh, do you know what? He might come on, and I'm a little bit happier now about this game. Ultimately, the manager can change a lot tomorrow, and it starts with his team news, and then obviously it goes into the game. The game itself will be a difficult one. We know Wolves have got some good players there, the likes of Hwang, who likes a goal against Everton, of course, Matheus Nunes, who's been heavily linked with a move to Manchester City. I think they've rejected the bid for him. Obviously, Matheus Cunha as well there, who's a big money signing last summer. I think Ain't Nuri, who scored their winner at Goodison last season on Boxing Day. So they've got a couple of talented players there that are capable of hitting teams. And whilst Wolves don't score a lot of goals, and ultimately they're in the position that they're in because they don't score a lot of goals, they often do well against Everton. In fact, I don't think we've beaten Wolves at Goodison Park for a number of years since that COVID season. In fact, I think it is. And players like Hwang are players that have stood out and done well in previous seasons. So this will be difficult. It will, but ultimately, for me, Everton have got to go and win this one tomorrow. And if you win this game tomorrow, and then let me give you a situation. For example, we're all sitting here now, leading into this game. We've just had a terrible 48 hours. We've had the news about MSP. We've had the news about a couple of deals breaking down, and we've lost 2 Premier League games on the bounce. We're all, I think it's fair to say, pretty fed up with Everton already. And we're only 2 games into the season. Let's say Everton win tomorrow. Even if it's a scrappy 1-0 comes off the back of someone's arse and we defend for 90 minutes. We win tomorrow. We then actually get our finger out and go and make some moves on Monday and Tuesday in the transfer market. We're linked with players. We have a bid accepted or we have a loan move accepted, etc., etc. We then go to Doncaster and we win. At Doncaster, 2 wins on the bounce, an away win, a cup win, great. We move on, and then Thursday, Friday, we bring in a couple of players. Friday, obviously being deadline day, we bring in a couple of players. Obviously we've been linked to Beto this week. Again, whether or not that one gets over the line, I'm not too sure. I still think the Che Adams stuff is not completely over yet. We know we've been linked with Sulemena from Southampton. Southampton heavily linked with a move and nearly completing a move for Mason Holgate today, so maybe that can be used in the Mason Holgate stuff. And all of a sudden, we bring in a couple of players, one of them being a striker. Things looking more positive. We go into Sheffield United away. Dom's back, and then obviously, if we get something out of that game, who knows? Maybe even win an away game for once, which it's not the biggest task considering Sheffield United aren't in a great place at the moment. Then we go into the international break, potentially off the back of 3 wins or 2 wins and a draw, a couple of new signings. We come out the international break with Dom back, with Dwight McNeil back, and with Jack Harrison obviously on his way back as well. All of a sudden, things look so much better than what they do now, and that's only in the case of a week, 2 weeks. So, as I said, things can turn around in football, but it ultimately starts tomorrow, and Everton have got to win this game. A draw, again, would be probably the most expected result, considering both of these teams can't score goals. But a loss tomorrow would be devastating. It would be absolutely devastating. In terms of team news, I'm going to give you my predicted starting 11, and then I'm going to give you my expected starting 11. So, in goal, I both predict and expect Jordan Pickford to start. Obviously, he gave away the penalty against Aston Villa, but I don't think that, I don't think that will have any sort of impact on the decision as to whether or not he starts this game. Left back, I'm going to go with Vitaly Mykolenko. I am going to go with Vitaly Mykolenko. I would like it to be Ashley Young and then Lewis Dobbin starting on one of the wings, but realistically, I can't see that happening. So I'm going to go with Vitaly Mykolenko. Left back, I'm going to go with a centre-back partnership of James Tarkowski, and I want Jared Branthwaite to start. I expect there to be a change. I do. I expect there to be a change, whether that's Branthwaite or whether that's Godfrey, I expect there to be a change, and I don't think Dyche would leave Michael Keane in there after conceding 4 goals away from home. I think for him to leave Michael Keane in there, it would be quite clear then that he was only doing it for the sake of the relationship as opposed to Everton's best chances of winning a game of football. So I don't know whether it'll be Godfrey or Branthwaite, but I do expect it to be a change. As I said, I'd like it to be Branthwaite, but we'll wait and see. Right back Patterson. Midfield, I am going to go with Onana, Decore, and Garner Gay. Again, not massively impressed with any of them in the first couple of games of the season. I think they've I think they've all been poor, but again, we haven't got many options, so I don't expect to see much difference. Left wing, I'm gonna go with Ashley Young. Right wing, and that's what I think he will pick, and I expect him to pick. Right wing, I want to say Arnold Danjuma. I know he plays off the left. I know he does, but we ain't got a right winger. Iwobi's been playing there. He obviously is out injured. And realistically, who's more likely to play on the left? On the right, Danjuma or Young? I think it'll be Danjuma. I would like it to be Danjuma. He was asked about Danjuma, and again, he continued this. He's not quite at the level of fitness we want him to be. This whole Dyche fit thing, which for me is an absolute nonsense, but it is what it is. I think it will be James Garner there over Danjuma. I've just got a feeling, even though I want it to be Danjuma. And then up front, I'm going to go with Mopai. I think Mopai will start up front. And again, you know, we can all sit here and talk about how negative that is or how frustrating that is, but it ain't going to be Chimiti. I think we'll be lucky if we even see him on the bench. And obviously, we know Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out injured, and we've got no one else. For the people asking about James Garner in midfield, I'll be honest, I don't think James Garner's been very good in the opening 2 games of the season. I think he's been a fault for a couple of goals. The goal against Fulham he was a fault for, and the first goal on Sunday he was a fault for. Now, having said that, on the ball he's played well and he's done okay. And maybe you could take Garner Gay out for him, or maybe even take Decore out. I don't know, but again, I just have a feeling that he's going to play. I've just got a feeling that he's going to play James Garner on the right-hand side. I do. Do I want him to? No, because he's not a winger. But I've just got a feeling that he's going to play him there. But ultimately, we'll wait and see, won't we? We'll wait and see. Anyway, that's going to do it. As I've said, really, really important game, this one. One that Everton simply can't afford to lose. Now, whether you want to class that as a must-win or not, I'll leave that to you. I think it's a must-win because ultimately I think if we are to lose, I think it would just be a massive, massive spiral. The pressure would pile on the manager. The atmosphere would be terrible. The anxiety, I just think it would be shocking. A win obviously could not change things around instantly, but it could be a good start to trying to change things around in the next week or so, obviously with it being the final week of the transfer window. Again, I could have sat here for half an hour today and spoke about how disgraceful it is that Everton haven't got a centre forward and how shocking it is that Everton still haven't signed a player since last week despite losing 4-0, but you know what, we may as well try and look at it with a little bit of positivity until the game's over and then we can assess it. But yeah, there you go. Big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. We will be back tomorrow with the instant match reaction and the player rating, so don't forget to look out for those. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would mean a massive, massive amount to me. And if you have enjoyed it, please leave a like. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.